Hi, this is Gurasi Singh, and you're listening to my Thick Accent podcast. In December 2020, I took on a 30 days challenge to post at least a 30-second video for 30 days on LinkedIn. Just to put myself out there, get out of my comfort zone, lose my work from home pajamas, and dress better. And of course, to network with more and more people. And during the challenge, I did connect with some incredible people who were inspiring and biggest motivators throughout. In fact, during the challenge, a fellow challenger gave me another challenge to showcase my expert skill, which she helped me discover. And my guest today is that fellow challenger. She moved from a small village in Dominican Republic to US with her family when she was just 13. From not knowing the language to breaking stereotypes, from being an underconfident job seeker herself to running a successful career coaching business, after a long journey of overcoming self-doubt and what-ifs, she has come a long way. Please welcome Melissa Mata.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with you today.
So, Melissa, you were born in Dominican Republic and was just 13 when your family decided to move to Brooklyn. Tell us, what was it like spending initial years of your life there, and what brought the family to US?
Sure. So I was, my family's from a rural part of the country where you don't really have water services or electricity services. Unless somebody in the town just happens to know how to connect all of that, right? So it was a pretty simple lifestyle. I got to spend a lot of time outdoors and all of that. I also got to live in the city a little bit, and my family had a 13-year long application process to come to the U.S. It was requested immediately when I was born, and so 13 years later, we'd forgotten about it. Things, went our way, and we were approved to come to the U.S. And it was at that point not even a question of should we. It's when sometimes when you live in a country such as where I'm from, there aren't a whole lot of opportunities for a lot of people to access. So when you're presented with the opportunity to come to the US, you pretty much just come to the US.
Absolutely. And if I'm not wrong, you were having just a weekend to pack your luggage and the luggage that you borrowed from somebody.
That's right. So, like I said, I didn't really know that I was even in that process. It was maybe a Friday. My father showed up at my school and said, we are going to the US on Sunday. So pack everything you can, pack your stuff. And I didn't have luggage, so I borrowed, and really, I never gave it back, but I borrowed a Mario Kart or Super Mario Brothers rolling backpack from a cousin of mine, and that's where I fit what I could and headed over to the US.
And do you remember the first day when you landed? What was going on in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was really excited to come to this new country. My mother was already here, and my grandparents were here. And so to me, coming to the US, I thought it was going to be a world of luxury and excitement. It's what you see in the movies, right? And so when I arrived, it was just the beginning of spring, end of winter, so there were no leaves on the trees, and I had never seen that. I come from a Caribbean country, so our trees don't shed leaves. So there were no leaves on the trees. Everything looked sort of desolate and bland and uniform. All the buildings looked the same. So as soon as I arrived, I felt a tinge of disappointment because it wasn't what I thought it would be. But I was, of course, happy to be here. Experiencing, something new.
And you landed in Queens and then you traveled to Brooklyn?
Yeah, in New York City, you have, the five boroughs or counties. So Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, they're all really close together. And so Queens has the largest international airport in the state. So I arrived in Queens, but Brooklyn was only like 30 minutes away. So it wasn't really much of a change.
Okay. So now I'd like to ask you about the relationships that you have had with your beds, and you posted about it and you called it the pursuit of bed. Please tell us about that.
Yeah, that was a post that I made at the celebration of my 16th year in the US. Um, and it just kind of hit me at that moment that I hadn't had the opportunity to enjoy something as simple as having your own bed. So my entire life, I'd had to share beds, not just bedrooms, but actually beds, with my siblings, with the woman who took care of my siblings and I when my parents were working. Um, and I moved around a few times to other family members' homes when my mother came to the U.S. So it didn't. I mean, it didn't phase me growing up. I didn't really think there was anything. That people. I didn't think of kids as having their own rooms or their own bedrooms. That never been a thing that I experienced. So I didn't think about it much. But coming to the U.S., I lived with my grandparents for a little bit. I didn't have my own bed or room. I then lived in a small apartment with my siblings and my mother. Also, there was a single bedroom. I've lived in studio apartments with two sisters and a mother. So throughout my life, I just never had the luxury, in my case, to enjoy something as simple as having my own bed until I moved out on my own. And even then, I didn't have a bed; I had a futon, and so eventually, I got a bed, and it was my bed. So I guess it's kind of silly to think about, but it's as I was reflecting when I hit the 16th year of being in the U.S., that was the thought that came to mind. I was kind of pursuing a bed throughout my entire life as I uh, studied or discovered careers and things like that.
And Melissa, in our earlier conversation, you also mentioned that your life was actually scripted. Grow up, get married by 18, and have kids. But you knew that you had opinions and you will follow what you believe in. Tell us what or who was it that influenced you and changed your mind? And can you give us a comparison of what your life would have been and what it is now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that some of the people with whom I grew up when I was back in the DR, they are living that life that was expected. That was sort of the norm. That would have been the norm for me. Go to school, maybe graduate 8th grade, and we didn't have a high school in my town. There was no high school. So you graduate 8th grade, and that's the highest you can go there, unless you move to a city. But then, maybe turn 18, get a husband, have a few kids, and serve, that role. But as a young child, I would see that in other people, and I knew I didn't want that for me. I love family, and I'm married now, and children are definitely something that I'm interested in having, but I have other things that I've accomplished that aren't family related. So as a kid, I knew that I wanted to accomplish things that weren't just family. I wanted to be more than what society just sort of expected that I could be. And of course, the people in my town did not appreciate a talkative child. Uh, they want you to, as they say, be seen, not heard. And I definitely had a lot more opinions than a lot of the kids had, and also certainly more than the adults were comfortable with.
I'm glad you had those opinions, and I feel you are definitely an inspiration to anybody coming from a smaller town.
I don't know if this is a popular or unpopular opinion, but I don't know that I am particularly special in what my experience has been. I definitely think that when you are, if you're born in a sort of environment that I was born into, if you move into a new country, there are definitely challenges, right? There's definitely challenges that can be somewhat limiting. But at the end of the day, I didn't do anything special other than just really trying to move forward, just doing the best that I could, just trying to work hard to meet my goals, and really not accepting what the expectations were, and just saying, this is, I think that's fine what you're proposing, society, but I want something different, and I'm going to try to figure out what that is, right? So I don't think that I'm particularly different or exciting, or I don't know. I didn't do anything special that other people from my background or in the immigrant community haven't done. But I guess I try to forge my own path, right? Going to do the best that I can to experience a life that I enjoy, whatever that life might be.
Do the best I can to experience the life I enjoy. Loved it. Now, Melissa, I would like to pivot towards your life outside the house. How was the school? And since you didn't know the language at that time, how are you managing everything?
So school at first was real scary, right? I didn't know the first thing about the English language. I think I could say hello, excuse me, I'm sorry. I think that was my whole vocab. And I also I didn't know anything about the American education system and how high schools work or anything like that. So it was kind of a lot of culture shocks all at once. But I found refuge in other kids who had just immigrated, just like me, and who also didn't speak English. And so it wasn't a bad experience. I remember high school being a positive experience. I was lucky that a lot of my school was, the majority of the students in my school were Latinos, and so I had people with whom I could speak. I did go to the eighth grade. They pushed me back 1 year because I was, I guess, too old. And I did go to school for eighth grade for just a few months, and it was a strange experience because even though a lot of the kids were actually Dominican or Puerto Rican, so we're very much alike, they weren't speaking English to me because they looked at me and they didn't imagine that I was actually Hispanic. They thought I was Indian, maybe. So it was kind of interesting when they would switch to Spanish to make a comment about the new girl. Nothing, sinister or anything, but when they would make a comment about the new girl in Spanish, and the new girl only spoke Spanish, so that was certainly fun. But I enjoyed my experience, and I certainly learned a lot.
And then there was an incident that happened in your music class where your limited vocabulary came in handy. Tell us about that.
I did join the high school band, and I didn't really speak English at the time, but I don't need to speak English to learn to read music, right? So I had a flute, and at one point there was a kid who was not in the band who took the flute and started sort of waving it around, and I don't know what he was saying because I didn't speak English, so I didn't know what he was saying. But it wasn't nice things, just based on kind of his body language. So I wanted to kind of, I'm a teenager, and I want to get back at him and say something mean back, but I didn't know what to say. So I said, okay, well, what words do I know? And so what I came up with was to say to him, "Oh, do you think you're cute? You're not cute. You are ugly." so that was, I didn't know what else I could say to kind of stand up for myself. I didn't have the words to stand up for myself, so I took the words that I could kind of put together, and use that.
And then there was another incident when you finally felt confident to speak English. Share with us that as well.
Oh, I loved this one because it was really a realization that, oh my God, I think I'm getting this. So it must have been 2 years into high school, and I had made friends with a boy, and he was really nice, but he didn't speak any Spanish. And he gave me his phone number, or he asked me for my phone number, and he said he would call me. And so I was really nervous because I could communicate with him face to face because body language made things easier. But on the phone, I thought, I won't see any of these visual cues. I won't know. What if I don't understand? So I was so nervous. But one night he called me and we had a nice conversation, and I couldn't tell you what it was about because I don't remember. But at the end of that conversation, I just thought to myself, my goodness, I did it. I speak English now. This
Yeah.
I know enough to have a decent conversation, over the phone without these visual cues. So that was my realization moment.
Okay, so after that, when you completed your college, you didn't know what to do with your life, and you end up taking a job answering phones. And that's where your journey to become a career coach started. Tell us about that phase of your life.
Yeah, so I was about to graduate college with $40,000 in loans. Um, I don't have parents with means that can help me with that, and so I knew that all of that was falling on me. And I also was thinking about, well, how am I going to pay this off? How am I going to survive out of school? What am I supposed to do? I don't know. I don't even know what I know how to do. I don't know what my strengths are. What are my skills? What exactly did I learn here? So all of these thoughts were kind of raising that level of anxiety that I think is quite typical of people graduating college. I started going to Craigslist because I thought that's where you go to find jobs. I didn't know any better. And, you know, I had rejections. I had bad interviews. I had horrible resumes. And just, I went through all of that experience. And throughout the years, I got better and better at recognizing and learning from those mistakes and lessons learned. I later became a hiring manager, so then I started to understand from the other side of the coin what people are looking for and why. So, you know, seeing that I had improved my life through professional development um, so significantly, to where I paid off my loans, to where I bought a car with just paid off a car, where I could move out in New York City. So all of those things, it sort of led me to think, what about the people I went to school with? Why aren't they here or better? And so that's what led me to career coaching, because I realized that I had learned some things through many mistakes and successes, and other people maybe don't know these things. But if only they knew, then they would accomplish greater professional accomplishments. So that's what led me there. Having come from such a place where I knew nothing, to where everything about the job search for me is it's a very sort of kind of methodical, strategic thing that I can teach others, that I can repeat for myself, for my own success. Led me to want to offer that to others so that they can enjoy the same fulfillment, and the same lifestyle improvements that I have enjoyed.
You said it very true, Melissa, that job search definitely involves a strategy rather than jumping right into submitting applications. So, if any of our listeners is looking for a change in their career, or you are a recent graduate and looking for that dream job, please connect with Melissa on LinkedIn. It's Melissa Mata, last name Mata. Or you can also connect with her on Instagram. Her handle is Coach Mel Mata. I'll also put the links to her profile in the show notes. Okay, Melissa, I personally love the analogies and the wittiness that you bring to your LinkedIn posts. I would like to share one of my favorites. It was, are you the person who turns into an FBI agent when you or your friend have a new date? Just like how you research your friend's new love and trust, research about the company before sitting in the job interviews as well. So, does that come naturally to you, or do you put a lot of thought to it?
I don't plan my posts. I know that a lot of people do, and I think that's great. And I never plan my posts because I like it to be as spontaneous and kind of original. And it really, when I post something, I'm really feeling what I'm writing. So whatever I posted that, I probably was working with somebody and helping them how to research a company and talking about that. But yeah, it's not something I plan when I'm writing something on LinkedIn. It's what I'm experiencing right now.
Oh, interesting. And Melissa, you are also an author of the book, The Best Boss They Have Ever Had. Please tell our listeners what is it all about and where they can buy it.
Yeah, so the best boss they've ever had is a sort of guidebook that I wrote in the same spirit of wanting to share lessons I learned that I think could help others in my same position. So I talk about the things that I learned being a manager of people for the first time, and when I was in that position, I had a lot of doubts. Am I doing this right? When should I not approve something? How do I handle a difficult conversation with an employee? Um, what does a good conflict mediation sound like? And I, put all of those kind of lessons learned together into that. It's a small book, but it is for people who are new at management or who are not have difficulty managing people, who find it uncomfortable or don't know how to handle certain situations, so that they know at least how one person did it and was successful with it. The reason I named the book "The Best Boss They've Ever Had" is because I got a lot of validation from my team, and these were people who you know, didn't love me at first because I was from another department. I'd never done their job, so of course they had doubts about whether I could be a good, supervisor for them. But it turned into a situation where my own team would say to other people who would then tell me that I was the best boss they've ever had. And that was the biggest compliment that I could, ever hope for. And I wanted other people to also experience that, especially coming from somebody who had no idea. I didn't know if what I was doing was the right thing. And at times it wasn't. So I, wanted to kind of save that process, the painful learning process for other people. So the book it's an Amazon Kindle book. So if you look up my name and the name of the book, Best Boss They've Ever Had, you'll find it on Amazon.
That is awesome. If any of our listeners is new at management or you have difficulty managing people, this is the book for you. Staying on the same topic of management and jobs, Melissa, I would like to know your thoughts on the big quit, the great resignation, where employees have spent the pandemic reevaluating their priorities and values and have decided to leave their jobs. So, what suggestions would you like to give to anybody who is planning to make that big shift? Or is it actually the right step to take or not?
Yeah. So the what we're seeing now with job search trends, right, with what people are calling the Great Resignation, I think it's people, and especially maybe younger generations, saying, "I will not stand for a job that is harmful to me or that isn't giving me what I think I deserve." So I think it's an empowerment that people are experiencing to go out and say, "I want better, and I'm going to go do it. I deserve better." So I certainly applaud that. Whenever somebody wants to leave a job and search for another, I typically recommend that you start looking before you give your notice. Financial security is important as well. So I always recommend, start looking and always keep your resume updated, start applying and interviewing while you're still employed. So you have the security blanket. There's a lot of anxiety that comes from job searching. You get rejected a lot. You go through a kind of train ride of emotions where one day you think I did great in that interview. I'm going to get an offer. And the next day they say no. So to kind of keep your sanity, keep your financial well-being, I always recommend, start looking while you are still employed. But hey, is it the right decision? Um, there are always pros and cons to any decision, right? So you have to kind of think about, is this a decision that I can live with? Are the consequences of my move something I can live with? If yes, if the answer is yes, then it's probably a good decision. At the end of the day, you are just going to a new job. It's not going to be a lifelong decision. If you go to a job that you don't love, hey, I left my job I didn't love and I found another one, but turns out I didn't love it. there are other jobs where that one came from. So it's still, it's a decision that you can afford to make, and a lot of the time. So it always depends on the person and their situation. But I think generally, it's probably something that you can afford to do. To go to a job and discover, if you don't like that one, it'll teach you something about what the next job must have for you.
So the best suggestion is not to be impulsive and have a plan before making that big shift.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now Melissa, I would like to ask you about another post that you made on Instagram, that going to college isn't the only way to get the college credit. There are inexpensive and less time consuming ways to get your bachelor's or master's. In fact, you are currently enrolled in a similar program. Please tell our listeners about that.
Yeah, I tell people all the time that you actually don't need to go to college to have a great job, right? And I still stand by that. But for those who want to pursue a degree, or who need to check a box for their job so they could get promoted or anything like that, there are many ways that I've learned about that, where you can get college credit or even a degree without having to show up for class, where you kind of just prove that you know what's required. So there are these tests called the College Equivalency Program Test, or CLEP, and that's only one of several. You have organizations like Sailor Academy, DSST, or Dentist tests, and so many others, where you can sign up for about $85, take a test, and if you pass, then you can transfer that credit to a university that accepts it. And there are about 3,000 colleges in the US that accept those credits. So you can easily go through 2 years of college by just taking tests and transferring the credits. And now you only have 2 years worth of courses to go through. Then there's also colleges which are equivalent, which are competency-based, excuse me. So competency-based are degrees which you can accomplish by studying on your own and then submitting, whether it's proctored exams or papers or assignments, and the school will grade them for you. And if you pass, then you have your degree. So I'm currently enrolled in a competency-based MBA program, where I learn. The school gives me the textbook and tells me what I need to go through. They kind of create the program for me. But I go through those classes on my own. I can meet with an instructor if I want to. I can meet with other students if I want to. I can attend live sessions if I want to. But all of that is optional. So I actually recently passed a class in a single day because given my work experience, I already knew the subject. So I just needed to prove it. And I took, my proctored exam and I passed it in a single day.
Wow, passing a class in a single day. I remember reading that post months ago and I was like, why didn't I know about it earlier? So thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing it.
Yeah, same here. And I'm happy to. I wish more people knew about it and could take advantage of it.
So now, Melissa, we are in the last segment of the podcast. I call it the final MTA talk. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and you can answer them in one word or a sentence or however you feel like. The idea is just to know more about you. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the first question is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Wow. I would give myself so much advice. But you know what? I think the main thing I would say is just keep asking questions. Not accepting that reality is what I think it is. Just questioning reality. Questioning, is this the right way, the only way, the best way that this could be done?
I guess you had been doing that all your life, right?
Somewhat, but I think that there were many opportunities where I could have saved time by asking questions instead of assuming this is just what it is. So definitely I would say question everything, and, I'm always curious, but question things that I even think are true.
Okay, perfect. So next question is, what situations make you awkward and why?
Oh, what situations make me awkward? I'm not. I'm an introvert. I'm not a very I would say socially gifted, where I can strike up a conversation with anybody. I can, but I don't enjoy doing that very often, and I need time to recharge if I do that, right? So I think that awkward, I might feel awkward when I have to engage in maybe conversations with people that I don't know, and so kind of that could definitely make me awkward. It's something that I have to practice and be conscious about, so that I don't go to that sort of awkward situation or awkward stage.
Okay. So, what is the best piece of advice someone ever gave you?
I think the best piece of advice I got was look out for your own best interests. There are amazing people around me at all times, people who help me and give me great opportunities and advice. But at the end of the day, I have to decide if I want something, I have to go get it. I can't wait for somebody to come and bring it to me. So kind of looking out for my own interests, deciding what it is I want, and actually going and getting them myself. It's probably the best advice.
That is so true. Yes, you can get the advice from people, but at the end of the day, you are the one who has to get up and create the life that you desire. Okay, so my next question is, any worst advice that you ever received?
I don't know if I really have received advice that I would categorize as worst advice. I think people who have given me advice have have done so from a good place, and so I always appreciate that, even if it's advice that I chose not to follow. I don't think that there's been times where people have intentionally or even unintentionally given me advice that isn't going to move me forward. So I guess I don't have a great answer to that question.
Okay, not a problem. Who's your go-to person when you feel stuck?
I'm lucky to have a lot of people in my life that I trust and who are my support system when I need, some sort of guidance. So I bounce a lot of ideas off of my husband, who has an incredible mind and whom I respect. So I think he's probably the first person I go to when I'm stuck, and he is full of ideas. So definitely rely on him a lot.
Okay, that's amazing. So anything recently that you purchased that you now regret?
I don't know that I regret any purchases, because if I'm going to buy something, I research it to the death. I go FBI on whatever it is, right? So by the time I purchase it, I feel really confident that this is what I like, and it usually turns out that way. I don't think that I'm an impulsive buyer by any sense. I'm probably really bad at buying things.
So you are a conscious buyer. All the discounts doesn't tempt you at all.
I'm not necessarily attracted to something because of a discount. I think that I think about it for maybe way too long before I decide to move forward.
Describe America in one word.
Opportunity.
Okay. Any Spanish cities that you have visited or recommend everyone to must visit?
I've had the opportunity to travel to a few different countries. And I actually lived in Seville, Spain, for a few months as part of college, and I fell in love with that city. So absolutely, if you have the opportunity to go to Spain, go to Seville. It's a great city. It's beautiful, has amazing architecture. So it's kind of a nerd's dream, if I can call myself that.
Okay, lastly, if you can create one law that everyone has to follow, what would it be?
I think I would probably create a law about reading, about educating yourself. Maybe you have to acquire knowledge, a certain amount of knowledge each year. Something that improves you and that helps you move forward and accomplish more and be a better person every day.
I would certainly follow that law for sure. So thank you so much, Melissa. Those are all my questions. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and adding value to my listeners. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, listener. Thank you for making it to the end. I highly appreciate you listening the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't as yet, and please share with your friends or anybody you think would like it. And like I always say, we encourage you to follow your heart, but also us on Instagram. The handle is mythicaccent. You can also leave us a review or write to us at hello@mythicaccent.com. So stay tuned and let's continue knowing each other beneath the accent.